Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here with another Star Wars Destiny video. And today I'm going to look at all of the villain upgrades from Spirit of Rebellion that I haven't talked about yet. So let's go ahead and dig in. Armor plating is the first one. Upgrade equipment costs 1 and is really strong. Before attached character takes damage, may block up to 2 damage, then discard this upgrade from play. This is a really strong card for those decks where you have a character you just want to keep alive. Being able to stick basically 2 more health on them. So Vader becomes 15 health. 15 health is a lot of health to chew through. Suddenly he's basically Palpatine. So I think a card like this, having 2 of them in a deck, suddenly you're 17 health. Maybe you play the graveyard just to be able to loop this because it's that good. Now you're looking at 19, 21 health. You put in Immobilize and some other shields on, you're looking at 23, 25, 27 health. This becomes a centerpiece in an attempt to keep a character alive. I really think we're going to see this a lot in Vader Raider. I think we'll see this with IG-88. Notice IG-88 can loop this out of your graveyard for free as it is with his ability. Every time he rolls a special, boom, he gets an armor plating back on him. That could make a really hard to kill IG-88. It's unfortunate you can't put it on somebody like Luke because it's villain only, but maybe you put this on Balatik. Maybe you put 2 copies of this on Jango. What I do love about the card is that, like what I just said, put 2 copies of this on Jango. That's pretty rough because Jango really wants a pile of dice to roll out. It's what I like so much about the design of this game with upgrades is that if you are putting defensive upgrades on a character, it's often, instead of offensive upgrades. The reason why this will work so well on Vader is I think there's going to be a Vader Raider light to no upgrade deck. I'll be talking about this later in the week, where it just uses its awesome events to basically be a burn deck. And I think a card like Armor Plating will be amazing in that deck, really keeping it humming and keeping it going for longer. All right, next up is another really cool card. Now I am the master. We have another upgrade. I kind of thought this would be an ability. It's not. That's okay. But after attached characters, character or upgrade dice deal damage, you may exhaust this upgrade to turn a die to a side showing a blank. I mean, that is really good for somebody like Vader, who his whole thing is, I roll out damage, and then even if I miss, I still force strike. I still do all kinds of ways to make that die do damage. So you're always basically triggering Now I am the Master at least once per turn. If you're not, you're probably losing anyway because you're not doing damage. So it's really amazing that the Vader player now has all these really cool plays, right? Like it rolls out, their opponents roll out, they roll pretty well. You resolve a damage, boom, let's make that one a blank. This card feels like it's going to be incredibly strong in something like Vader Raider, and I think it's going to be strong in pretty much any more aggressive deck. This may be a reason to go blue for aggressive decks. Let's say you have Grievous or a Sing, and they're very aggressive cards, or IG-88, and you're thinking, what can I do to give myself more ways to mitigate? Now I am the Master feels like a really strong card, and I like its cost at 1. If it was 2, it would just feel too expensive. 1 feels like a really good amount. All right, the Z6 Riot Control Baton. This thing is bonkers. This may actually be the best legendary in the set. I know everyone else thinks it's Force Speed. Having used Force Speed, it's great. Don't get me wrong. It's a little bit less good than people thought it was. It's still very good. But the Z6 Riot Control Baton fits in the slot that we don't have, which is this just a really good melee weapon without plus sides. Kylo's Saber's really good, but it has plus sides on it. Luke's Saber's really good. That has plus sides. This thing, even though it has 2 blanks, because of the ability on it, after you roll the die, you get to re-roll it. The odds are really good you're going to hit one of these damage sides. Being able to do something like roll out Vader or roll out Grievous. Let's say you roll out Grievous and hit his 2, and then you hit another 2 on this. It's just going to be so strong and put a lot of pressure. It's not unique, so you could have 2 of these. It costs 3, which seems about right. It seems like these good melee weapons are all 3. It's well costed. It even has a redeploy. This card seems very good. It's a really good reason for melee decks, or for red decks to go melee. And I gotta say, the guy that this fits best with, so fitting, FN. This fits really well on FN, where you get to go, play this on FN, roll it, re-roll it, then resolve it. Then it goes back on to FN. Then you roll out FN, and you still get to use it. And what's so great is because it has redeploy, FN is going to die. This is what happens. I played several games now with FN. I actually own him. And every time I play FN, if my opponent does not go for FN, I usually play him with 3 characters. I feel like 10 is what you want from him. So I play him with 3 characters. I do his ability about twice, and they go, whoa, 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 whoa. I am no longer killing whoever it was I was killing. FN is going to die now. And I think we're going to see everyone go for FN first. And so if everyone is going for FN first, what you get out of him is a strong burst before he dies. And so what you want is to end up with a bunch of redeploy weapons on him. So that then when he does die, which will happen, your board state isn't completely shot. And so the Riot Baton fits really, really well in an FN deck. And I don't really think you can play FN without 2 copies of this, to be honest. So I think it's going to be probably in the top 3 most sought after legendaries, with Palpatine, Force Speed, and the Riot Baton. Interrogation Droid. Actually, this is support. We're going to do it anyway. Interrogation Droid is very interesting. After you activate it, you get to look at a random card in an opponent's hand. If it's an event, you may discard it. So basically, this can be 2 mil. Each turn, you look in their hand. If they have an event, come on, they're going to have an event as long as you activate this early. You get to A, look at their hand. Oh, you get to look at a random card. Sorry. You get to pull a random card and see if it's an event. So if you time this right, there's a really good chance you'll hit an event. If you wait a little bit deeper in the turn before you activate it, you'll hit that event. Let's say you roll the discard side, which is half the time. That puts a lot of pressure on them. Oh, I only have 2 cards left after you pulled my event. I better play one, and then Interrogation Droid rips the rest of their hand. The question is, how does this card work? What does it work in? I think it's a great pair for any Jabba deck, because normally what happens to me when I run a Jabba mill deck is they kill Jabba first, and then whoever's left is not as good at milling as Jabba is. If it's Dooku, it costs money. You only have the 2 sides now. Interrogation Droid really, I think, helps you with that. The problem is it costs 2, and that's kind of a lot for a card that just does a little bit of milling. Scout is probably just a better card at only 1. But I don't know. It's an interesting card. I think it will see play in mill decks for this set. I don't know if it'll see play long term, but I think it'll see play in mill decks. I think it really helps mill decks become a little more consistent there at the end of the game. Having an Interrogation Droid almost guaranteeing a card or 2 every turn is going to be frustrating. The DT-29 Heavy Blaster Pistol. I mean, this looks a lot like the Baby Blaster, only it's worse. So, I don't know. To me, this is an overcosted blaster. At 1+2+2, I want my guns to shoot things. So I look at those numbers and I go, okay, seems like about the Baby Blaster range. I don't even know the name of it. That's just what I call it now, the 1-cost blaster. Now, it does have an extra non-blank side, and it has this very specific special. Remove an opponent's die showing a resource cost. I consider that a blank. Maybe in some matchups that ends up being really good, but I just consider that a blank because it's too specific. So it's basically a much worse version of the Baby Blaster. Does it mean it won't see play? No. I mean, there may be some villain decks that are red and only have access to so many guns, and maybe they want it. Long term, this will not see play. This is a terribly costed item. But in this set, maybe. I tend to think it will not. I can't imagine if I have to put this in a deck, I'm going to feel like I didn't make my deck well enough and I need to change some things. It especially does not work with a card like FN because it's all pluses. It could work well with the Death Trooper. I just think it's a bad card. I don't think we'll see much play with it. Lightsaber Pike. Whew. I mean, it's kind of similar to the Heavy Blaster, only instead of a 1+2+2, it's a 1+2+4. +4 is huge. Oh my god. Having this on Vader, just rolling Vader, 3 natural and then a +4. You're staring at 7. That is insane. What's good about it is it's harder to cheat this out. You can't fast hands it. You can't force strike the +4 and then immediately resolve it. You have to hit it with another thing. So what I like about it is it'll be easier to disrupt, which is good because it's too strong to have a 4 that's undisruptible. You could do it with 4 speed though and make it so that it can't be disrupted. So it's going to be a very, very strong weapon that will be used in a lot of decks. A question is it better than Kylo's Saber? I would still say no. I think having a 3 and a +3 and a crazy good special is better than this, but it's good. I think this will see play in some sort of, like, I think there's going to be 2 versions of Vader decks, and I'm going to talk about these, later in the week. There's going to be the one that's no upgrades, and then the one that is binds all things, armory, enrage, lightsaber pike, Kylo's saber, and by turn 3 goes, let's see it. Let me see you kill Vader before he kills you when he has a pike, a saber, and some other awesome upgrade. Good luck. All right, Imperial Discipline. This is a very interesting one. Red character only. Action, remove this die to turn one of your character's upgrade dice to a side showing ranged or resource. Very specific. The actual die itself is pretty lame, but the ability is really cool. For only 1, you stick it on, say, Phasma, and then you just go, okay, I roll. Yeah, so I didn't get a base damage, no problem. I'll just turn that one to that, and I'm ready to go. I feel like it could be a pretty good card. I think it'll probably see play in these gun-heavy range decks. I don't think it'll see too much play if your only guy is a Stormtrooper. Probably doesn't look that good on FN because he has such a big target. But if there's a red character that is going to live a little while, I think it fits really well. A Phasma deck seems like a great spot for it. Lure of Power, man, if this was an ability, I like it a lot. As just an upgrade that I cannot cheat out with Holocron. Notice by the way, Holocron is so good that they're just like, yeah, this obvious thing that should be upgrade ability, it's not an ability. It's not an ability. Boom. That's how we're handling Holocron. We print an ability, 4 speed, it's 0. All the other abilities are not abilities. So, real quick sidebar. If you don't think Holocron is overpowered, you are wrong, and this is a great example of why it's overpowered, is that they had to actually change their whole design philosophy because that card exists. All right, let's move back to Lure of Power. Lure of Power is really interesting. You may only resolve these modifiers to be whatever you want. It can do any symbol. So that's really interesting, but it's kind of crappy, right? +1, +1, +2. This is a card I really have to see in play because 2 seems too much for this. This seems like a clear 1-cost card, a super flexible 1-cost card. My guess is at 1, it was just too good. My guess is also at 2, it is not good enough. Like if you're running a damage deck, a 1, a 1, a 2 is pretty bad for 2. You could easily do better than that. Where it becomes really good is in decks that have a heavy focus theme or have a heavy resource theme or need flexibility, but we just don't see that very much, right? It's usually just I want to do damage, and in those decks I think we find better things than Lure of Power. I think it's really interesting. I love the design of it. I think at 1 it's probably a little too good. At 2 it's not good enough. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this card is just going to be amazing and in all kinds of decks. I think if it said ability upgrade, it would be. All right. E-Web Emplacement. So we have here another support. This support is really cool. I like the design of this a lot. Basically, if you control the battlefield, all the sides are +1. So you've got 3 resources. 3 resources for a 1/1/2/2 is that's okay. It's probably worse than the TIE Fighter. It's an extra damage side, but 2 of them you have to pay for. It's pretty lame. If you said for 3 I get a 2/2/3/3, wow, that's a whole nother story at that point. But this is what's really interesting. It's been my experience that if I play a deck with supports, I'm generally not getting the battlefield because I have too many actions I have to take. Therefore, its sides will not be increased by 1. So that's what makes this card such a cool design space, is that I feel like in order to get the benefit from this, you're going to have to give up on some of your character dice, which is tough to do. So I don't know. I don't think I'll be playing it myself, but it is a cool design, and maybe someone will find some really interesting use for this. I think the big problem is to release a card like this, along with fast hands, force speed, all these decks that can go super fast, really screw over this card. I think in Awakenings it would have been a far more interesting card. All right, the Personal Shield. Personal Shield is pretty cool. Before attached character is dealt 2 or more damage, range damage, you can exhaust it to give attached character 1 shield. So it's kind of like the armor that we talked about earlier, except you don't have to discard it. But the problem is it's more specific. So if the meta becomes a ranged meta, this card becomes pretty darn good. For only 2, you're probably going to get 3 shields, 4 shields, depending on how much health your character has. But it does cost 2, and so you're looking at that and going, maybe that's too much. Maybe that's too much for 2. Remember, 2 is your whole turn, unless you're making a lot of resources. It does do shields, but the 1 and 2 aren't that amazing. And then the 3 costs a resource, so now it's even more expensive. It does no damage. It's just strictly a mitigation card. I don't think this is actually going to see that much play. I think if we get to a Django spot where we got to with a Little Wild Awakenings, and what I mean is Django was every other deck, maybe it sees play. And it doesn't have to be Django, but any sort of heavy ranged meta. But if there's any sort of balance, I don't think this card sees play. And to be honest, I think Melee is going to be better. I think there are 2 really good Vader decks, and that's just the start. I think there's all kinds of cool things. FN with the Baton. I think there's a lot of good Melee decks this time around that people are going to find pretty quick. Whereas last time it seems like people found the Vader Raider right away and then quickly went, no, Django's better, and just latched onto Django for, several months. I love the design of it. I love that there's a card like this in the meta. I hope that there's one for Melee as well at some point, so that you have both sides of that coin, right? Whatever the meta becomes, I have an answer that I can choose to try to run to answer it. So as just an overall great card, no, I'm a little underwhelmed by Personal Shield. As a specific meta call, I think it's great. All right, I don't remember if I've done Vibro Knuckles yet, so I'm going to do it again. Vibro Knuckles is really good. It is 3, which is expensive, but it's in that how much melee weapons cost, right? They just all cost 3 pretty much, and it looks terrible at 1/1/2 melee damage. It's pretty good as a mill card, 1 and 2, but if you want to, before you resolve this, you can actually spend a resource to make it a 2/2/3 damage, which becomes maybe the best melee damage output in the game, close to it. It has ambush. Thankfully, it is not neutral, so it does not work with Rey. But you can do some cool stuff with this. I think people are going to play this. I think in that Vader weapons deck I'm talking about, if it runs yellow, I think it wants it. I think Grievous would like this card a lot. What's really interesting about it is it fits really well in a mill deck that maybe just wants to kill one character. Maybe they have 3 characters and one of them is a trooper, and you can just melt that trooper with your Vibro Knuckles really fast if you've wiped their hand with Jabba. So I think this is a really cool card. I think it's going to see quite a bit of play. I think I don't think it'll be quite the holdout blaster of this set, but I think it's going to be up there. I think this will be one of the 5 to 10 most sought after rare cards. So Vibro Knuckles is very good. I'm excited for it. Boy, it puts out a lot of damage. All right, guys. That is going to do it today for the spoiler wrap up. Tomorrow I'll be back with probably hero and neutral upgrades and supports, and then we'll finish off the week with all the events. There's so many cool cards. Oh my goodness, I can't wait. And they're in the mod now, so look for me streaming. I will definitely stream some Vader Raider and all kinds of cool stuff this week. And I hope you having a great week, and I'll see you next time.